Three of his sons sweet flavor in Texas. That's how I hail from Dallas, Texas, y'all. Because one of those sons was my third great grandfather. It's my motivation because here I am, four generations after William Perry, fighting for not only my own humanity and my own dignity, but yours as well. And that's what's important. I gotta wrap it up, but that's what's important. NAACP, keep fighting for our humanity, our dignity, and I'm gonna stand with you. Thanks so much, everybody.
And now, from Las Vegas City Council Ward 5, Councilman Cedric Creed.
Good morning, everybody. The AG told me he was going to go in, and he did not lie. I got to go behind the AG on that one. And he's a friend of mine, too, so I'm going to talk to him afterwards. I should have gone first. But it's great. He is, we have to give a big round of applause. This gentleman was a former Nevada State Senator, Majority Leader, and now the first Black Attorney General in the history of our state. And so we are actually looking and saw more of the history this morning with my good friend Aaron Ford. So welcome everybody to Las Vegas to the 115th annual convention. I am Las Vegas City Councilman Cedric Creer, and I represent an area downtown Las Vegas. We also represent an area called the historic West Side, where Black people could only live, they could only entertain before 1960. I was born and raised in this community, and my parents moved out here from Houston, Texas. Went to Wheatley, graduated from Prairie View. My father was the second Black doctor. We got some people from Houston down here before. And my father was the second Black doctor in all of Nevada. And so we've been in the city for a long time. First, I want to thank my Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity brother, Las Vegas NAACP president, 06. Quentin Savoy for having me, and also National President Derek Johnson for the opportunity to bring you greetings this morning. As a life member of the NAACP, I also want to thank you for fighting Brothers, don't you be a sucker. If you're gonna be streetwise, be streetwise. We gotta stop going for that red card. I know we're tired of being demonized. I know we're tired of being ostracized and criticized, but we gotta keep our heads up. And I'm not gonna stand by and watch you be misled and not pull your coattail. I want us to share with our dear brothers. You already know, take it home and share it. To choose policies over politicians. They talk much more about the politicians than the policy. Choose policy. They don't know that the man that they are supporting, his last budget cut, he proposed $1.6 trillion cuts in the social safety net funding over a number of years. Programs that support their families many times when they're unable to contribute. Cuts to the $2,000 child tax credit that would take your kids out of poverty. Child care subsidies to care for the children when you're not there. Feed them with the SNAP program when you can. Last time he was president, he cut low-income housing over 47%, some of which you're sleeping on in the basement of your grandmother's house. And you support the man who cut her rent subsidies. That's one politician. Our current president's policies, however, has delivered over $3 trillion to the economy by way of the American Rescue Act, the Infrastructure Jobs Bill, and the Inflation Reduction Act. Folks want to know, Democrats got to have better messages. Folks want to know why we got inflation. Inflation comes when a bunch of money comes and people start spending. So yes, we have inflation. It's because we have an administration who has sought to uplift those that were held down and have been locked out for so long. And last, the biggest con of all, some of our brothers are going for this prison reform that our former president allegedly did right by us, because he released some notorious kingpins and some gangster rappers. You think he's for criminal justice reform. Well, he commuted in 237 people during his term. The previous administration, President Obama, who you all like to talk crap about, he released 1,900 from prison. Talking about him, he's the only one that you put out of jail.
Come on.
Our current president is already beyond 300 in only his third year in office. Oh yeah, brothers. You're being tricked. The fact is, they're throwing the red card on. And I'm not gonna let you go for the red card. I'm not gonna let you stand there and be calm and watch you betray your family, throw your women in front of you to do your dirty work and work on behalf of your interests while you sit home watching ESPN and playing video games. I'm not gonna stand by. I'm not gonna stand by. You turn your direction to a MAGA movement that is against everything that benefits you, your family, and your community because of some fake gold gym shoes. They make us food. You're a bunch of stuff. Woo! Tell them, boy. I can say that. Don't y'all take that message back. They respect me enough. They'll take it from me. I've been there and done that with them. And they know I'm in the trenches with them right now. But yes, brothers, he got some golden gym shoes. He's tough. This super macho syndrome, he keeps it real. No, brothers, you ain't tough. And you sure ain't keeping it real. And you sure ain't keeping it street when you go for that red car. We gotta stop this madness. Stop it, stop it, stop it. We gotta fight back. We gotta stay strong. We gotta, brothers, keep your head up and go all in. God bless you. Thank you for having me.
Is the global equity strategies and initiatives for Amazon. Please welcome Joe Briggs.
Good morning, everybody. Wait a second, I'm the son of a Baptist preacher. I got to do that again because I didn't hear. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I am because we are. And because we are, I am. So I'll start this by saying thank you to my fraternity brother, Derek, president of the NAACP, for inviting us to be a part of this. This after a couple weeks ago, we were together in Tampa, having a great time at Bible study and a bunch of other fellowship. Where we learned a lot about the Lord, we talked about the future that we're going to see together. In keeping my remarks short this morning, I'm reminded of a conversation I had just a couple days ago when I was in California about the redwood trees and how they're all connected together. And how sometimes, even though we can't see the root systems of those redwood trees that grow high in the sky, those trees are connected together. It's a network of trees that are all building upon each other and how they support each other in everything that they do. One falls short if one falls down, if one is harmed, then the others provide nutrients and support to that tree so that that tree can continue to grow and that tree can continue to exist as a part of the forest. And as I look out amongst all of the trees that I see in the audience today, I'm reminded of that network just below the surface, of how all of these various chapters and regions of the NAACP are able to connect together. As the person here representing technology company Amazon, I am supposed to set the mood for a panel discussion that will happen later today. We'll have a representative on that panel discussion. That panel will talk about the ways that we can be aspirational in our future and how our network will help the future that we want to see become our reality. My hope is that as you listen to the panel, as you listen to the panelists, and as you listen to the message, you will not only hear that we are all in, but that we are in this together. I'll say that again, that we are in this together. So as you listen to the message from the panel, as you listen to them talk about the technology of the future and the way that Amazon continues to be all in with the NAACP, my hope is that you will also take out your phone, that you will use that hashtag in this together so that we can remind the world that we are indeed in this together. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.
Please welcome Verizon's Executive Director of Strategic Alliances, Michelle Comer.
Good morning, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to be here with you this morning. Thank you, President Johnson and Chairman Russell. Verizon is a longstanding supporter of the NAACP, and we greatly value this incredible partnership. This is truly an honor for me and a full circle moment to be on the main stage at the annual convention. My first annual convention was 31 years ago in Indianapolis, Indiana. Shout out to Indianapolis. And I had the amazing opportunity to sing. I was not speaking. I was singing on that stage as a winner of the Afro Academic, Cultural, Technical, and Scientific Olympics, also known as ACSO, representing the great state of Maryland. I was the national winner in both the vocal music classical and vocal music contemporary categories. And that trip from Maryland to Indiana, where the lovely, amazing mothers in the local ACSO chapter wrapped their arms around all of the regional winners and brought us by bus to Indianapolis, made me reflect on how different our world is today. 31 years ago, that bus driver did not have a GPS. He took out a big paper map and charted our course from Maryland to Indiana. We didn't have phones. We had to talk to each other. We played cards, we sang, we laughed, and we made that road trip go by quickly by connecting to each other. Need to make a phone call? Well, make sure you have a quarter. And we'll get on the payphone at the rest stop on the way if we could find one. And the list goes on and on and on about how different our world was 31 years ago because of the connectivity and the access to the internet that we have today. Fast forward to now, and everything is online. Some of you are online right now. From banking to healthcare to critical information and services, connectivity is key. But there are far too many, especially in our community, who still do not have access. For too many, they still are on the wrong side of the digital divide. At Verizon, we recognize that access to technology is fundamental. That is why we partner with NAACP and other organizations to ensure that communities have the digital skills and connectivity and tools that they need to thrive in today's digital world and in today's digital economy. We are committed, or should I say, we are all in to help students, to help seniors, to help veterans, to help mothers, dads, small businesses, and everyone in our communities get connected. And we are going to continue that work. We will always be all in. And when I return to this convention, not 31 years from now, but much sooner, we can reflect then and say that we have finally closed the digital divide. Thank you so much.
Please welcome NAACP Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Trevon Williams.
Good morning, NAACP. How many enjoyed the plenary last night? You know, last night, our Vice Chair of the NAACP, Karen Boykin-Towns, referenced certain nostalgia she felt coming to the National Convention each year. She spoke about the individuals coming from across the country as almost like a Black family reunion, if you will. That Black family reunion reference got me thinking about growing up in my own family. I was raised in a home with a single mother, older sister, grandmother, and aunt. And two memories came to mind. One was hearing gospel music on Saturday morning.
Because that meant it was time to do what? Clean up, clean up. So we might be family anyway. The second one was growing up, and the more I appreciate it now, having my own family, is calling for a Black family meeting. It was during the family meeting that we gained perspective, had authentic conversations, and addressed the fearful and triumphant moments that our family had faced or would face. We left those conversations aware, more aligned, more unified on how we would go forward together. This year has offered us many fearful and triumphant moments that we thought was only right for us to do a little bit something different this year. So NAACP, we're calling a family meeting. And ladies and gentlemen, you're about to meet a woman who has always been unafraid to say what needs to be said on behalf of the Black family. She lives at the intersection between sports and politics, and she's about to sit down one-on-one with the president and CEO of the NAACP. Please join me in welcoming Jamel Hill and our president, President Derek Johnson.
All right. Hello, everybody. I guess because I'm 4,000 years old, I came out here with a trapper keeper, basically. Some of y'all are old enough to remember what those were. But I'm so happy to be here in this audience, in the company of so many wonderful Black people in our Black jobs as we take care of our Black business with a man who may have Blackish jobs in America or whatever, leading this illustrious, historic organization as we face a very challenging and turbulent time. But first, because we're both from Detroit, I don't know if you do that, I like to start with our official. Yeah, that's right, we're in the house and those that are yelling. You know our official greeting. What up, though? What up? But to pivot to something a little more serious, President Johnson, obviously, many of us have watched the events this past weekend unfold, the assassination attempt against the former President Donald Trump. I just want your thoughts from the start about what that incident says to you about the political climate that we're in.
First of all, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this 115th annual national convention. As we have watched the political landscape over the last, particularly 10 years, we are at a cliff around whether or not we're going to have a functioning democracy or something less than that. And anytime we begin to witness violence as a part of the political dialogue, whether it's January 6th or what we heard or seen this past weekend, it is really crucial for us as African Americans to understand what this means for our future and what role we must play to ensure we stabilize this democracy. African Americans, we are very familiar with gun violence in our community, oftentimes unaddressed, or oftentimes we are left with the carnage of the outcome. And so we don't condone, it's disturbing to see violence in the political space as we don't like to see violence in our communities. But we cannot get distracted. We cannot be distracted. Because this election is so important. It's not about candidate A or candidate B. It's about the policy priorities that's going to be advanced. And those policy priorities will have an impact on our quality of life. And it's the role of this organization to make democracy work so we can live in a country that's more representative of our interests and our needs and less about an apartheid system that people want to take us back to.
Well, with that being said, let's get right into it. I mean, we're about, I think, 113 days until the election. You brought up a few of the issues that are facing our community, but what in your mind, what are the most pressing issues facing our community right now?
The most pressing issue for our community, folks talk about, so what is the civil rights movement? The civil rights movement is a three-legged stool. That's how it started. Access to exercise our franchise. Access to be paid a fair wage for our labor because of the exploitative nature we were brought here as free labor and then labor utilized as cheap labor. Collectively bargain being key to that. And the aspirations of our future education. That's the three legs of the civil rights movement. So you ask about the issue, the enabling right, the enabling opportunity of the two of the three legs is the vote. And sometimes people minimize the impact of our vote because they only look at the transaction of one election, or they only look at one part of the ticket, not recognizing it's the entire ballot that's for consideration. And so what's most pressing for Black folks right now is between us leaving this convention inspired and being more impactful to guide our community to the voting booth to ensure we get the type of government that will protect us and allow our children to grow and to stabilize our democracy.
So how would you describe the current state of our civil rights right now?
We had a tipping point. You think about the progress we made. Because of the Black vote in 2020, we have retired over $1.6 billion in student loan debt. The Black vote did that. The Black vote did that because the president we got in office, that wasn't a priority. It was not a priority. We organized a campaign around canceling student loan debt. We effectively executed on that campaign. In many cases, we did the messaging and not everyone seen our brand identity because we were shared to our partner organizations because no one Black organization was carried away. We are all in this together. And as the negotiation was taking place, we said not less than 50,000. If the deal was cut 10,000 or 20,000 Pell Grant, we took it a step up. The number one employer for African Americans in this country is government and nonprofit sector. Already adopted was public service loan forgiveness. We were able to get a rule change to allow for individual school teachers, federal workers, after having student loan debt for more than 10 years, it was completely wiped out. An average of $68,000. And just around 50% of those individuals who have the debt wiped out, Black folks. That's the power of our vote.
Speaking of our power, I feel like a shout out is necessary, and a thank you to actress Taraji P. Henson, because she brought up, in addition to being just fabulous, right? But she did something very important that many of you may have seen at the BET Awards. She brought up Project 2025. And I read a piece that after she brought it up, the searches for Project 2025 escalated 1,600%. Because a lot of people, maybe some people in this room do not know what Project 2025 is. President Johnson, can you explain what it is? And then I'll ask you a follow-up about what that means for us.
So two parts of that question. One, is it important that we use our platforms wherever we have an opportunity? And what Taraji did, she used the microphone when a lot of our folks was watching. What Scott Mills did was allow that microphone to be used and the script to be uploaded so folks can truly understand what is at stake. Project 2025 is a part of a 60-year strategy designed to roll back the advancements of the civil rights movement and New Deal policies. It was a part of a creation of the Heritage Foundation and the Cato Institute and the Enterprise Institute that were all created in the early 70s when movement conservatives consolidated, and it was the William F. Buckleys of the world. It was the John Birch Societies of the world, and it was the Southern White Dixiecrats that flipped over following George Wallace. History matters. This is not about the transaction of one election. This is about the long arc that we have been up against. New Deal policies created a space where the wealthiest individuals in this country
began to get taxed. And they were so upset, they actually planned to coup. Sounds familiar, don't it? And they were let off the hook. New Deal policies kicked in, we get Social Security, we get FHA home loans, we get the GIP, we get all of these policies that some of us were benefiting from now. Great Society policies kick in the 60s, and but with that, we get the Voting Rights Act of 65, we get the Civil Rights Act of 64, we get fair housing policy. All of those things kick in, which expanded the possibilities for the Black middle class. Most of our families migrated out of the South. My family from Tennessee to Detroit. Many of your families to Chicago, we call that North Mississippi. Many of your families from the Carolinas and Jersey, looking for and getting good jobs, labor jobs, coming out west because we was in the military. So that's why we have folks in the room now in Alaska, because you got stationed there, you stayed there, or Hawaii, you got stationed there, you stayed there. Black folks, we are all across this country, and we are prospering. But the Heritage Institute and those high wealth individuals, they began to design a plan. And 60 years later, they have been able to perfect it. And on this ballot, for Project 25, they want to abolish the Department of Education. They want to roll back the gains made around voting rights. They want to give corporate interests more say in public policy and the law. And they want to diminish the ability for individuals to fully engage as citizens. It is an apartheid policy approach. They want to create a 1930s America as we fight for an America that looks more diverse, more inclusive, and provide more opportunity than we have ever seen in the past. It is not about candidates, it is about our future.
And just as a further point of reference, I mean, the document is 900 pages, and they know that a lot of people won't read 900 pages, but those who serve in the military should be aware that one of the things, or two of the things they want to do is privatize military health care. We know what that means, it's not a good thing. And they also want to completely, essentially gut military retirement benefits and replace a lot of civil servants, which Black people are overrepresented when it comes to civil servants. So I encourage you all to please, at the very least, read the cliff notes, and certainly about how it impacts our community. As you mentioned, President Johnson, about the attacks that are laid out in this Project 2025, many of which are on DEI, CRT. This has been going on in our country for quite some time now, especially in the last few years. How is the NAACP responding to these attacks on DEI and CRT?
So I was told not to use this graphic, so I'm gonna do it right. If I have my hand up here, you see the hand, right? But if I stick my middle finger on the hand down here, what is happening is we keep looking at the hand up here, not seeing the middle finger that's down here. All of those things are a distraction. Every single one of those things. You think about diversity, equity, inclusion. People are rushing to that conversation as if it's a new conversation. It was packaged with some think tank, and they rolled it out for corporations to say, hey, this is the new policy now. The corporations never truly implemented the policy, and we begin to work around it. They hire people with no budget, with a title, and no authority to implement it. In response to George Floyd, knowing that there will be George Floyd fatigue, so then they can roll back to nothing that they have put in place. It's a distraction, right? What we must focus on is the substance. And the substance is not the performance of a candidate running for president in a debate. The substance isn't having a fight around critical race theory, which most of us never heard of until about 4 years ago when Fox News mentioned it, and all of a sudden it took off. It's a distraction. The substance is the policy priorities that are being considered at the time in this game of chess. Elections is not about the one-time transaction. It's the arc of power. And what has happened over the arc of power, the Black community, women, the Latino community, in many other communities, we are increasing in our power, therefore it's a direct attack to minimize the power. We can't get distracted here as they put out the middle finger down here and lose focus and energy and allow ourselves not go to the polls and vote to ensure the trajectory we're on, we maintain that trajectory.
Another obvious important issue that impacts our community, but this country, is of course the racial wealth gap, which we all know how grim that it looks. Can you tell us some initiatives the NAACP is doing or has in place to support Black entrepreneurship?
So two things. One, racial wealth gap. The current president came in and said, we're going to close the racial wealth gap. I said, well, how are you going to do that? And there was no clear pathway. And when you look at the racial wealth gap, the number 1 and 2 drivers to that gap is home ownership and entrepreneurship. Those are the two numbers. Those are the drivers. Well, why aren't we participating fully? Well, when it comes to home ownership, in order to qualify for a home mortgage, your credit ratio needed to be where you could actually qualify for a home or housing stock. And when we looked at it, like, wait a minute, we were not qualifying. And the 1 and 2 reasons why is because of medical debt and student loan debt. So what we did was we took on the student loan fight to begin to get over to the loss of equity. And then we, because of our vote, Marcia Flood become Secretary of HUD, that gave her the initiatives to accelerate programs and monies to increase home ownership. Under her tenure of Secretary of HUD, we've seen the largest increase in Black home ownership in the history, and it not be predatory products. So when you partner the two things, you reduce the debt so you can qualify. In terms of the entrepreneurship, there are levels to that. If everything turned like it's supposed to next month, we will be announcing a venture capital fund, a $250 million raise to support Black venture capitalists who invest in tech innovation. Because it's in that space we need to be in, and this is what's unique about that space. VC funds raise their money from 3 primary places. Sovereign wealth funds, there's more money. Pension funds that many of you in this audience have paid into, but we're not reaping the benefit from those pension funds. It's our money. And if you think about, you name the municipality, from New York to Chicago to Detroit, if you think about the Texas Teachers Association, it's a lot of our money in there. Or in California, CalPERS, it's a lot of our money. And you go around the country, you see all these huge mega developments and community developments, they're using our money to develop around our community, locking us out and not allowing us to participate. And so us getting in a place of doing a fund to fund put us in that game because we can get a meeting, but unfortunately NAACP, before we get the meeting, it was taking a wheelbarrow and then we should have had an 18-wheeler. This 18-wheeler over now. We gotta go and get the money that many of you have paid into so it can be invested in our community to improve our property and provide opportunities for our young people.
Like the President Johnson, I definitely believe that history is a great blueprint in terms of guiding us forward. And I'm always very inspired when I look back at some of the footage what we did about the civil rights movement, and I realized the ages of a lot of the people who were the architect of our most important Black movements in this country. Young people are very much the lifeblood of a lot of movements. So as you see a lot of young people getting more politically active, politically involved, what is sort of your advice to them as they try to navigate this political climate?
Successful movements in our community has never been one generation. They've always been intergenerational. Energy of our young people, the wisdom of our elders, the more seasoned, citizens, and the continuity of those who are in between age. And one of the fallacies of the civil rights movement is when young people protested one day and therefore things changed. It has never happened like that. Another fallacy about the movement is, people got tired, they stood up, and they went to protest. Most movements start with one or two people, and everybody followed on after the fact. Another fallacy in our movement is the church led the movement. No, they didn't. A lot of black pastors were scared to get involved with the truth be told. Movements are ignited when courageous people recognize what's confronting them and they decide to do something about it. That's how movements start. It isn't based in organizational supremacy. It's not based in gender dominance. It's not based in a us versus us paradigm. And even when we look at the most successful movements, I always tell people, and sometimes my wife said we don't talk about Martin Luther King, but so I'm not going to talk about Martin Luther King in a bad way. I say the most effective civil rights leader of that era we call civil rights movement first was Nathan Randolph. Because you can measure his impact over decades, and his strategies were not based in his charisma, but it was based on him understanding the nature of power and how to leverage our power to get power. Second person was Byron Rushing. Byron Rushing was a logistical genius and a mentee of A. Philip. He didn't suppress his identity for other people's comfort. We can never suppress our identity for other people's comfort. And the other person was Ella Baker. Ella Baker came to NAACP and she got sick of male chauvinist behavior, left the staff, went to New York, stayed on the volunteer side of the NAACP, but what she did realize when working with the national office, there was a group of World War II veteran courageous individuals. And as she organized those students, she didn't direct them, she put them in a space to understand the nature of power. She assigned them to those local leaders on the ground who had courage to do something. And those elders who were World War II veterans and those young people ignited something that wasn't based on speech, that wasn't based on protest, it was based on strategy, driven by outcome to ensure that the power we had would be leveraged to get the power that we needed to fully engage as full citizens. I have long answers to short questions.
My job is just to not crash the car. That's it. Okay. But I'm glad you did talk about strategy because I think right now a lot of people are sort of grasping and thinking about the ways that we can better focus our efforts in the fight for equity and justice. So what should we be doing in that fight?
I think community-centric leadership is key. Each one of you, when you go home, there will be someone in your community looking to you for direction. So for those of us that's in the room and online, we need to know our craft. We need to know the information, be confident in it because people are looking at us. Titles only secure your ability to facilitate a meeting, preside over a meeting, or responsibility to make sure the paperwork is done and the money's being correct. That's the nature of titles. Some people take a title as if they endowed with the title, but they do nothing but show up at the meeting. Going to an NAACP meeting isn't civil rights. It's going to an NAACP meeting. It's a difference. And if you are disconnected from the communities that you purport to represent, and all you do is hold a title and go to a meeting, you are doing a disservice to the community that you purport to represent. But if you go to the grocery store and the folks who look like us at the grocery store, you don't know them and they don't know you, we got a problem. We got a problem. We're not here to serve the title. We're not here to go to meetings. We're here to serve the people, and the people work every day. And it's those people that we should be looking at. And so when we leave here, let's make sure we know the information. Secondly, Project 2025, the comms team, the policy team, they're going to be providing you with bullet points, digestible size, information on what it is and why it's important to us, to you, and in that community. And then thirdly, you gotta have some courage. Fear is the most powerful emotion that a human being is confronted with. And how we handle fear is the decision point. Fear either paralyzes you or propels you. In this group, we need to have the fear propel us to do something. Now, we all should be scared. Fear isn't the issue, it's what we do with it. Propelling to act is key. We will win because we're going to decide to win and overcome fear so we can be prepared to organize our force to do what's necessary. And what's necessary between now and November is to educate our community, engage our community, sign up with our volunteer program. We got to get 300,000 people to turn out to vote. We need 300,000 people to turn out to vote. I checked with Dominic, around 78,000 people we've signed up so far. It is a targeted campaign because there are people who sleeping in your house who ain't vote. Those infrequent voters, that's what we need to get to the polls. And don't let anybody tell you that Black folks don't vote. We do. And in some communities, we outperform white folks in voting. And in other communities, we're only within 3 to 5% difference based on income. Let's overcome the fear fight.
I'm sure there's a lot of space players in the house, so if we used to say on the space table, study home, study wrong, right? So make sure we're in action and not just studying and rooted in that fear that you're talking about. Now, this question is sort of close to my heart as being a member of the media. We all know representation in media matters a lot. And, you know, the NAACP has always been active in terms of influencing how Black folks are represented in media. So can you talk about some ways that the NAACP is leveraging that influence in media?
Media has shifted so much in the last 10, 12 years. If you talk to your children and grandchildren, they don't wait till the 6 o'clock night news anymore. That if you are a branch leader, if you hold a press conference thinking the press don't show up, it'll be a lonely wait for they ain't coming. Media is so democratized, we have to really pick apart where people are getting their information. Because it's not the traditional ways. We love the Black press, we love it, and Dr. James is in the audience. We actually need to support Black press. But the rapid pace in which people are consuming information is something that we are getting into that space quickly. The reason why Jamel Hill is here, because a lot of our young people capture their news in sports conversation. They're not looking at cable news, nightly news. They're looking at, listening for the score, who's gonna get one contract, and in between that is political commentary. White folks use talk radio. We're using gaming and sports talk. If you are under the age of 35, that's where they get information. And you go to social media. Social media is a great tool, but the level of dis and misinformation on those platforms is alarming. 2018, there was this emergence of this group around reparations. ADOS. And many people really, where did they come from? Okay, it's an interesting dialogue to have. 2019, it escalated. 2020, it was a fever pitch. Some of those folks made up, they showed up at your meetings. Y'all need to support reparations. Yeah, we've been supporting reparations since John Conyers introduced the bill in the 70s. But they nuanced the conversation and said it should be only for descendants of slavery, as if racism, oppression, structural barriers stopped after slavery ended. In fact, structural barriers still exist now based on race. Research was done to realize over 80% of the activity around ADOS on social media platforms were bots driven by Chinese and Russian interests, creating dissension among and between the Black community that was unfounded, because in order for us to get reparations, we got to be able to protect whether or not our kids get a quality education, whether or not we can address the student loan crisis, whether or not we can advance questions around diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of which we are losing, and we want to distract ourselves with a conversation over here that's nuanced and unnecessary because we don't have people in the seat to adopt the policies. It ain't gonna happen anyway. And so as we look at media, we have to figure out better ways to be buffers between what's factual and what's not. Talk sports, and if an NAACP continue to elevate our brand identity, so when they see us, it's okay, that's credible, because we don't know what's credible and what's not, as we continue to support our Black press, who, by the way, they have to advance the delivery of their information. Only some of us read a whole article. Most people now, they merge, they barely read a paragraph. And that's the nature of how people consume information.
Again, if you allow me a moment to get on a soapbox, I'm glad you brought up the Black press, because one thing that we have to do is support Black-owned media. A lot of the, your role models, I mean, so many, even those of us who are still lucky to be in cities that have a Black newspaper, it's very important that you support it. If you go to the site and you see it's a paywall, pay the money, because in order to get the information, journalists, editors, the people putting out this information have to be paid, and that's part of it. So it's very important that we support Black-owned press. The Shade Room is not Black-owned press, okay? All right. We need to get our sources of information, as President Johnson said, from credible places that cover our community, not just when it's convenient, but cover our community holistically. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that.
Well, here's the issue here. The Shade Room on Instagram alone got about 29 million followers. Our Black-owned press combined struggling to have 10 million. That's how fast things are accelerating. So as we look at Black-owned press and media, we also need to innovate. What's the emerging new technology platforms they gotta get on? That essence, money is made from the festival, not the publication. That Hiram, who owns the Michigan Chronicle, Chicago Tribune, this carrier, he makes his money from events to fund the papers. That we had to almost sunset the crisis because you couldn't revenue it anymore. We were $4 million in the hole under crisis. Ebony is walking dead. It's there, but it's no longer Ebony like we grew up with it. And so a part of why we have to get into the VC funds space and innovation is because we're being left behind holistically, because we only have a handful of Black-owned press. TV1, which is a partner, they are on a fraction of the cable providers, and cable is shrinking. So when I'm talking to Alfred Higgins, he's trying to figure out what's the next for TV1 before it's unable to pay its bills. And I can go industry by industry with the small number of Black-owned press that we have, and it's going to be smaller within the next 5 years if we don't figure out the technology divide in front of it.
That's a great point. We have to support too, because I hear us in the community, a lot of us, we speak like we all watch PBS, but your decisions that you make with your remotes and with your phones say a different story. So when you see especially Black news, you really need to support that, because that is the first on the chopping block in any mainstream media outlet, because they feel like you don't want to see it because you don't vote with your remote and or with your phones.
And conscious Black reporters.
Yes.
They want figureheads to dance like them. But if you have any critical thinking skills and you dance to the Black beat, then all of a sudden your contract don't get renewed. So that's another problem.
Say it again.
We can have a whole sermon on that one.
Yes.
You've talked about this extensively throughout this conversation about what the NAACP is doing in terms of partnerships and collaborations. But I'd like for you to shed a little more light on some of these key collaborations and partnerships that the NAACP has developed that help advance the organization's mission.
So right now, we say that what's supposed to go between now and the November's election, we've invested over $1 million+ in the data van activation network. And to all of our partners, you heard Melody Campbell speak earlier, Judge Mathis and I represent Rainbow Push. You can go across the board. We offer the platform for free. We offer it for free. We provide the training. In terms of our messaging, we're developing messaging. We are out there polling. We share that information with Black organizations across the board. Why? Because there's not a single organization that can confront this problem alone. Organizational supremacy will kill us. Yes, we're the oldest and we're the largest, but what difference does that make if we cannot reach everybody that needs to be reached? And it's through coalition and collaboration to protect our community is how we win. And so we can sit on one stool and say, this is true, therefore what? Therefore, we must share, empower, and build the ability of our partner groups and leaders to grow. In Memphis, Tennessee, in 2022, leading up to the district attorney's race, one of the worst district attorneys in the country for Shelby County, back on the ballot, 8-year term, she refused to even look at DNA evidence to exonerate folks who were innocent.
Yes, sir.
We invested in that branch, we invested in the state conference, and we invested in 3 other community groups who were on the ground, because Memphis branch is one of our largest branches, but some of the members, they weren't going to the hood. But there were groups that they partnered with that went, so we gave them money too. The Memphis branch, one of our largest branches, they can cover a lot of geography, but there were pockets and segments that they needed support in, so we invested in those groups too. And as a result, we got rid of that district attorney. So when that unfortunate incident took place with the Memphis PD, those officers were suspended and then terminated within weeks of the incidents, not because it was headline news, because they had an accountable district attorney that Black folks put in office to represent their needs and interests. And we invested in more than NAACP to get it done. We invested in a strategy to make it happen. That's how we collaborate.
That's right. That's strategy and organization. Now, as we come to a close, you mentioned it earlier about the voting drive, about mobilizing 300,000 voters. Please elaborate on that and also offer any closing remarks that you might have.
This year's program, like we've done, we've built to this point. Our goal is to recruit 200,000 volunteers. You've heard it all through this convention here, to mobilize 5.1 million infrequent voters. The difference of this election will be won in inches, not miles. It's going to be very narrowly targeted to specific precincts and specific districts in targeted states. And so we've done all the research, we share with partners. I see Siobhan Arline here, National Coalition of Black Folk. I always mess it up. Siobhan Arline, she go turn out the women vote, and we invested. In order for us to get there, the research say that me being on a microphone, that's not going to move voters. A celebrity coming in, that doesn't move voters. That inspires existing voters. What move infrequent voters, people who are registered to vote, but who always don't vote, because majority of the voting population, they don't pay attention to this until September when all the marketing dollars get out there. So we got to move 5.1 million infrequent voters in our community, and if we do that, we win. We can't do that without neighbors talking to neighbors. And so recruiting 300,000 volunteers in the areas where those infrequent voters live, so that you can call, text, pick up the phone, or go to their bedroom because they live in your house, and get them to the polls. That's how we win. The target is in 22 states. Nevada's one of those states. Why? Although it's a small percentage population of Blacks in this state, they overperform in terms of voting, both here in Metro Vegas area and in Reno. And when they turn out, we win. And so the program is designed for that. In closing, we are who we are looking for. There ain't no savior to come do this for us. Because when Jesus come back, this don't matter no more. We are who we are looking for. Charisma is great for inspiration, but action gets stuff done. We are who we are looking for. We don't have time for us versus us argument. We don't have time for that. Only thing we have time for is an us for us action plan. And so let's go to work. Let's get to action because we are all that we have. So let's be us for us and let's get all in. Peace and power. Thank you.
When it comes to Black futures, we have to stand on business. It's an election year. Democracy is on the line, our Black jobs are on the line. It's time to take our fight to the ballot box.